What's that sound? It's for amusement only, the EM and Bingo Pinball Podcast.
Welcome back to For Amusement Only. This is Nick Baldridge. In Coin-Op Carnival news, Ryan Clater presented a planetarium presentation on Coin-Op Carnival and Wayne Nyans at the MSU Abrams Planetarium. And after the presentation, in the lobby of the planetarium, there were several games set up on free play. There's a full write-up on coinopcarnival.com under news, and I would encourage you to check that out. It looked like a great event with some great attendance, even though the weather turned out to be not so great. So thanks everyone for coming out for that, and look forward to the next tour stop, which is actually this week at Pinball at the Zoo. Again, Ryan is flying solo for this one, and following this directly, he will be attending the Small Press and Alternative Comics Expo as the fourth stop on the Coin-Op Carnival 2019 release tour. So good luck, Ryan, with those tour stops, and I look forward to hearing how they went. In other news, the U.S. Postal Service lost a box of our books. 100 books have vanished into thin air, but luckily we were able to get some more shipped, and I've been shipping like a madman. So there are just a few more orders that are waiting to be shipped, but everything is wrapped and ready to go, and everything should be out by the end of this week, and I will be up to the minute on shipping. Thank you very much for everybody who supported us and this venture. It means an awful lot, and we have really enjoyed putting the book together, and I've enjoyed very much getting it into people's hands and hearing the reaction. So thank you all for your kind words. In service call news, I went and serviced a Bally Circus here recently. That game had a rodent infestation. A snake had moved in at some point, probably to cure the rodent infestation, and inexplicably, a cat. So those three things at least had been in the machine at some point or other, and there had been some evidence that it had sat outside for a little period of time as well. I was able to get the machine going and cleaned it up. It required several interesting tweaks. Someone had sprayed something which had hardened almost to a rock in there, some kind of grease, but it was definitely propelled from some kind of spray can. And, of course, that all had to be cleaned off. And once everything was cleaned up, fired right up, it was pretty great. The only issue that I had were the lamp sockets. These are the Bally flat pack sockets, which are essentially mounted in cardboard and stapled to the back box. Whatever kind of infestation had been in the game had corroded all of these sockets. So some of the lamps didn't work very well, even after squeezing the sides together and doing all of the little tricks that I have. Nothing short of replacing the socket would totally fix that, but other than that, I was very pleased with how the game played and everything functioned. In other news, I've been working on Robo-Frenzy, and I only have a few more circuits left to wire. I wired in the 120-volt circuits for resetting the tentacle trip banks. Those are reset every 4 steps on the timer unit. Now, in order to handle the reset, I actually run through a switch on the score motor, and the reason for that is to prevent the coil from overheating. There is a switch which can tell whether a relay is tripped or not. However, it's only mounted under one of the relays, and unfortunately it's one of the ones which was not used. That switch in particular tends to be pretty flaky anyway, so I wasn't exactly thrilled at the prospect of using that as a gauge as to whether that coil needed to fire again. Instead, I'll be going on best effort of that coil and hoping that everything works out okay. If it doesn't, the worst that will happen is that the tentacles will be fixed in position and the game becomes unplayable. But that's a far better scenario than the coil remaining engaged and, of course, blowing a fuse or catching fire. So I've wired in extra fuses. I intend to have a separate fuse for every 120 volt coil in the game. That's probably overkill. I could probably do every two 120 volt coils with a single fuse, and that's how my original design was set. But upon further reflection, if I have one coil go bad or burn out, I don't want it to take out the fuse and knock out that part of the game. So just being extra cautious with 120 volt circuitry, which I'm sure you'll agree is probably a good idea. In Universal 5-star news, I mentioned that Sophie is learning how to take the game apart, clean it, fix it, and put it back together. So she has done a lot of taking apart and cleaning and putting back together so far. And after last episode, she has taken apart the playfield and is working on cleaning that. She's done some of that with me in the past. That is generally work which I think kids of any age can really help with, as long as they are conscientious. And it's so gratifying to see, the graphics come back to life if they're, a little dingy or faded. Once you put a coat of wax on, it really shines up the game, makes it look like new. It's great. So, of course, with kids, that's, I think, an important thing too, being able to see the effects of your work more quickly than most of this mechanical work. And of course, they can see that too, but it's a little more abstract than, saying, oh, this green is now much brighter and shinier and looks good. So, anyway, that's going well, and all we have left to do, really, is to clean the plastic posts and reassemble, and then polish all the metal which is underneath the playfield. So the playfield has all these different ball trails where the balls can go when they fall in different gobble holes in the playfield, and the trough requires some careful polishing. But once those are done, the game should be ready to playtest, and hopefully everything will be just great. Bit of a short episode today. There's an awful lot going on, if you couldn't gather from some of the updates that I just talked about, but I did want to leave you with a game, and that is 1959's High Diver by Gottlieb. High Diver is a beautiful wood rail that I've had the pleasure of playing. It has backlash animation of a young lady and a clown, which are both diving, and they're moving in a circle, so you can only see one or the other. It's pretty amusing once the lady dives underneath the water to see a clown rise up from the other side. But it's a neat game. Unlike most of the games of the period, instead of awarding points on rollovers or various switches on the playfield, you're awarded advances. These advances move those divers in the back box a certain amount. And once the diver disappears from view, you're awarded a point. And at 15, 17, or 19 points, you're awarded a replay. Now, you can also win on score, and with thresholds beginning at close to 6 million or at 6 million, depending on the scorecard you're using, you have more opportunity to earn some replays there. Now, unfortunately, there's not an on-playfield special. I think that is the one thing that this game lacks that would be beneficial. However, the gameplay is unique enough that I think we can allow it, right? This game has 4 flippers and several passive bumpers and a few kick-out holes, each of which advance that diver in the back box a certain amount. Sometimes it's 1 advance, sometimes it's 5, sometimes it's 10, and it depends on if the kick-out holes are lit or not, and which of the other targets which I mentioned that you hit. The upper flippers are great for bouncing back and forth between the pop bumpers and hopefully back up into the holes, which allow for multiple advances. There's also a rollover switch in that upper area which awards 1 advance every time you hit it. So even if you're just lobbing the ball back and forth, hopefully you're getting at least 1 advance every time. Down lower, you have the second set of flippers, of course the slingshots, which are mounted above them, and targets, which are angled on either side, which will either turn on or turn off the pop bumpers, and that alternates with each bit of score that you achieve. The slingshots also alternate which one scores higher. So there's a bit of a game involved in the lower playfield in making sure that you're achieving the highest score and not turning off the pop bumpers. One side will turn them on, and one side will turn them off. So hitting the appropriate target is very important. As I mentioned, this game is a lot of fun. The artwork is beautiful. It is Wayne Nines and Roy Parker, so you know you're in for a fun time. And the one thing I'll say, and this probably speaks to why there's not an on-playfield special, is that at the show, when I've played it before, and I think I've played a couple different copies over the years, but I've always felt that the game was a little easy. In other words, if you're able to keep the ball in play for a sufficiently lengthy period of time, you're definitely dinging at least one replay every game. Perhaps that's just me. Maybe I just connect with this game an awful lot. One came up for sale recently, and I really considered seriously purchasing it. Unfortunately, as always, there's a lack of space. So that's all for tonight. Thank you very much for listening. My name again is Nick Baldridge. You can reach me at foramusementonlypodcast@gmail.com, or you can call me on the Bingos line. That's 724-BINGOS1, 724-246-4671. You can listen to me on iTunes, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, via RSS, on Facebook, on Twitter at Bingo Podcast. You can follow me on Instagram, also at Bingo Podcast, or you can listen to me on my website, which is foramusementonly.libsyn.com. Thank you very much for listening, and I'll talk to you next time.